Hi, I'm Leela. Welcome to True Payback, where revenge isn't loud. It's calculated. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Let's get into this one. The video call was set for 11:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. I dialed in from my office in downtown Chicago, the floor-to-ceiling windows behind me framing Lake Michigan. My assistant had cleared my calendar for the rest of the day. Family meeting was the only note on the schedule. On screen, a polished conference room flickered into view. My father's office in Austin. Long glass table, high back leather chairs. The company logo etched on the wall. My brother Adrian sat to his right, leaning back with that relaxed arrogance he'd perfected over the years. My mother was on Dad's left, fingers laced tightly in her lap. At the head of the table, the estate attorney, Mr. Dalton, shuffled a thick stack of papers. "Natalie," my father began, his voice carrying that same calm disapproval I'd grown up under. "Your grandmother's passing has been hard on all of us, but we need to discuss the estate like adults." I adjusted my webcam, keeping my face neutral. "Of course, Dad." Adrian leaned forward, his smile polite but satisfied. "Before we dive in," he said, "I just wanted on record how much I've done for Grandma's portfolio the last 8 years. The Austin duplexes, the cabin up in Colorado, tenant issues, repairs. All the late night calls, I've been the one holding it together." My mother touched his arm. "We know, Mio. We've all seen how hard you've worked. We're very proud." Mr. Dalton cleared his throat, eyes on the documents. "Let's review the formal numbers. Mrs. Morale's estate includes 9 income properties, 8 duplexes in the Austin metro area, currently appraised at approximately $4.6 million, and a vacation home in Breckenridge, Colorado, valued around $1.3 million. Total property value, about $5.9 million, not including liquid assets." I didn't flinch. Those numbers had been familiar to me for a long time. What none of them knew was that my grandmother had called me privately months before she died. Natalia, she'd said over the phone from her house in San Antonio, her voice thinner than I remembered but still sharp. "Your father has never really looked at you, but I have. I see how you work. I see how you've built something from nothing. Your brother, he talks, but I've been watching the bank accounts. Money keeps evaporating." That conversation had led to a quiet trip down to Texas and a meeting in a small law office my family had never heard of. Not Dad's corporate counsel, my grandmother's personal attorney in San Antonio. Quitclaim deeds, property transfers into an irrevocable trust with me as the sole beneficiary, filed, stamped, and recorded with Travis County roughly 18 months before she passed. At a time when no doctor on earth could have argued she wasn't of sound mind. On paper, I'd already owned every one of those properties for a year and a half. In the meantime, Adrian had continued managing them, collecting rent, paying for maintenance, cutting himself in on income that no longer belonged to our grandmother. He thought he was skimming from an old woman who would never catch him. He had actually been stealing from me. I had said nothing. I had spreadsheets, call recordings, copies of falsified invoices. I was waiting to see how far they'd go. The will states. Mr. Dalton continued that the estate should be divided. Dad cut him off with a small wave of his hand. "We don't need the legalese," he said, turning his gaze straight into the camera, straight at me. "The intent is what matters. Natalie, your brother has spent years keeping those properties afloat. You, on the other hand, left for Chicago to do whatever it is you do up there. Adrian has earned the entire estate. That's our position. It's what your grandmother would have wanted if she'd understood the full picture." He said it like a verdict, calm, final, non-negotiable. Adrian nodded solemnly. "I don't want to sound grabby," he added, "but Dad's right. I've put in the work. The midnight emergencies, contractors who don't show up, tenants who don't pay. I stayed. You left. I'm the one who's been present for this family. My mother looked at me with that soft, pitying expression I hated. Sweetheart, you have a good job in Chicago. You're doing fine. Adrian has a wife, a baby on the way, and his firm to grow. He needs this to build real stability. Morale's Wealth Partners, Adrian chimed in proudly. We're getting ready to scale. This inheritance is going to be the launch pad. I looked at my father again. The decision was written all over him. This wasn't a conversation. It was an announcement dressed up like a meeting. Adrian deserves everything, he repeated. That's the fair outcome. I let a beat of silence pass. Understood, I said quietly. Mr. Dalton shifted in his seat. Ms. Morales, you're within your rights to contest any proposed distribution you feel is. That won't be necessary. I said, my voice level. I appreciate your time. I ended the call. For a moment, I just sat there in my corner office on the 45th floor, the sun glinting off the water beyond the glass. The city moved below me, traffic, people, 1,000 lives that had nothing to do with mine. I allowed myself one slow breath. Then, I picked up my second phone and opened an encrypted messaging app. Pull all capital. From Morale's Wealth Partners immediately. I typed to my private equity manager. Full exit. Execute today. No prior notice. No exceptions. The reply came back in under a minute. Received. Approx $5.3 million. Will be withdrawn across investment vehicles by 4 P.M. Central. Counterparty. Will be notified automatically within the hour. I set the phone down and turned back to the portfolio reviews I had to finish before close of business. The history my family knew was the shallow, flattering version. At 18, I left Austin for Northwestern University on a full academic ride. Dad had scoffed. Chicago. So far. You could stay here, go to UT or Texas State, be closer to family. Adrian, 3 years older, had done exactly that state in state, earned a finance degree at Austin, and gone straight into Dad's small advisory firm. In my parents' story, that made him loyal and made me distant. At home, I was the afterthought, the quiet daughter doing something with numbers up north, while their golden son shook hands at every barbecue and held court at every family dinner. They hadn't seen the rest. Northwestern had been scholarships, ramen, and 3 jobs at once. I tutored statistics, worked late nights at the campus help desk, and spent weekends reconciling books for a local restaurant, all while maintaining a 4.0. I graduated early. A small fintech startup in Chicago snapped me up to do financial modeling. 18 months later, a major bank acquired them. My stock options were suddenly worth just under $2 million. I was 23 and quietly wealthy. Instead of announcing it, I disappeared into the work. I found mentors, not in my father's circle, but in Chicago's real investment ecosystem. I learned deal structure, term sheets, how to read a balance sheet and know whether someone was lying just by the pattern of the numbers. I started writing checks into early-stage companies that actually made sense. Boring businesses with cash flow. Niche saws with paying customers. Manufacturing plays with solid contracts. By 27. My net worth hovered around $10 million. By 32. I'd crossed the $40 million mark. Now, at 35, my portfolio sits just north of $150 million. I chair 3 boards, sit on to more. And last year, Fortune put me on their 40 under 40 in finance list. They printed my first name only. No photo. That was how I requested it. Twice a year. I flew home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I wore jeans from Target and carried a simple tote. In Austin, I rented a compact car from the airport like everyone else. The downtown penthouse I actually lived in. The one overlooking the lake with the private elevator and the art on the walls? No one in my family has ever seen it, not even in a photo. At parties, Dad would gesture at me with a half smile. This is my daughter, Natalie, he'd tell his friends. She works with money up in Chicago too. Never a follow-up question. Never what exactly do you do? Adrian would grin and say, she's still single, still renting. Some of us are building real assets. I'd laugh lightly and change the subject. Because I learned something early, being underestimated is more useful than being admired. People show you who they really are when they think you're beneath them. My investment in Morale's Wealth Partners had started years ago, before I understood how rotten things were. Dad had asked for capital when the firm was growing, and I'd funneled it through anonymous vehicles partly to help, partly to watch. By the time I realized Adrian was who he was, I'd already decided to wait, to document, to let the evidence accumulate until the moment was right. My grandmother was the only one who didn't swallow the family narrative whole. On my last real visit before her health declined, she'd pulled me aside in her kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You think I don't notice?" she'd said in Spanish, eyes narrowing. "You tip waitresses 50%. You never let me pay at restaurants. That isn't struggling. Why do you hide it?" So I told her, not everything, enough. My investments, my returns, the math that didn't add up when I compared. The rent her properties should be bringing in with what she actually received. Her jaw tightened. "Adrian has been helping me with those for years," she said, slowly. "Then he won't mind if you hire someone to review the books," I replied. 3 weeks later, she called me, her voice shaking with rage and humiliation. "He's been taking from me," she whispered. 4 years. Small at first. Little bits. Fake repairs. Rent I never saw. It's over $300,000, Natalia. She didn't hesitate after that. "I'm signing everything over to you," she said, not in some will they can argue about. "Now, well, I am perfectly sane, and the doctors will write letters saying so. We'll use deeds, trusts, whatever the lawyer says will be unbreakable." "Abuela, you don't have to. He is my grandson," she said, steel in her tone, "and he is a thief. Your father has always protected him. I will not go to my grave leaving my life's work in the hands of a boy who treats it like his personal. ADM, you are the only one who ever paid me back when I loaned you $10. So we did it, and she made me promise one thing. Say nothing until after I'm gone. Let them play their game. Let them show you exactly who they are." At 12:05 p.m., about half an hour after I'd ordered the capital pulled, my phone started lighting up. Dad first. I watched it ring out. Then Adrian. Decline. Mom. Decline. By 12:40, my assistant buzzed me on the office line. "Ms. Morales, your father keeps calling reception. He says it's a family emergency." "I'm not available this afternoon," I said. "Please let him know I'll call if I'm free." At 1:15, my private equity manager, Victor, called. "It's done," he said. "All structured vehicles unwound. Wire confirmations received. Their operations director just phoned my office in a panic. Apparently your position represented their primary working capital line. No slack, no reserves." He paused. Double quotes Natalie. "Without that money, they can't make next week's payroll. Their bank facilities were already fully drawn. They're, in a word, finished." "That's unfortunate," I said flatly. "Your father is the managing partner," he added carefully. "I assume you're aware." "I am. I'll have backup documentation ready if this ever touches litigation." Their disclosures to investors were optimistic. To put it mildly, no need, I said. "I've had a forensic accountant going through their numbers for most of this year, hired through an anonymous LLC. The report's locked in a safe deposit box. If they try anything, I'm not the one who'll be scrambling." He gave a low, incredulous laugh. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." After we hung up, I finally scrolled through my voicemails. Dad. Earlier, "Natalie, there's some kind of issue with the bank. A significant investor just pulled out of Morale's Wealth. I need your insight. Call me." The next one, his voice tighter. "This is serious." Over 5 million disappeared from our accounts in one afternoon. Pick up your phone. Adrian, I don't know what the hell you think you're doing, but if this is you, stop. Right now. This is Dad's company. Our family's future. Call me back. Mom, tearful. Baby, please. Your dad is white as a sheet. He says something catastrophic is happening with the business. Come home or at least call me. I deleted them all. I finished my reports. Just after 8 p.m. Chicago time. My personal phone number known to maybe 10 people on Earth rang with an Austin area code. I didn't recognize. I answered. This is Natalie, Ms. Morales. This is Lauren Cho. I'm an attorney at the firm handling your grandmother's estate, calling on behalf of your father, Hector Morales. I'm listening. There appears to be an unexpected complication. When we attempted to file today's estate transfer documents with the county clerk, we discovered that all 9 properties we discussed the Austin duplexes and the Breckenridge home are already recorded in your name. The transfer dates are approximately 18 months ago. Can you clarify? My grandmother transferred them to me directly through her personal attorney in San Antonio. I said, they've been mine since then. She was quiet long enough for me to hear the faint clink of glass in the background. You've known you were the legal owner this whole time, she said slowly. And you didn't speak up during the will conference today. I was invited to hear how you planned to distribute her estate. I replied, not to correct your assumptions about which assets were still part of it. No one asked who owned those properties. They simply assumed. Paper rustled on her end. Your brother has been managing those buildings and collecting rent on them for years. Yes, I said, on property he doesn't own, which makes him, at best, an informal property manager. I let that sink in. At worst, she asked, already knowing the answer. At worst, someone who's been diverting rental income that belongs to me. I've tracked 18 months of transactions. Every rent payment, every so-called repair, every dollar that never hit the rightful owner's accounts. Do you know the total? Right around $360,000 in unremitted rent and padded expenses since the transfer. That doesn't include what he stole from my grandmother before. This is textbook embezzlement. Ms. Morales, it is. You could press criminal charges tomorrow. I could. Why haven't you? I swiveled my chair toward the window. The city spread out in glittering lines below. Because I wanted to see what they would do when they thought I had nothing, I said. Today, my father looked me in the eye and told me my brother deserved everything that already belongs to me because he managed it. That answered my question. Lauren was silent for a long time. What do you want? She asked finally. I already have what I want in terms of assets, I said. My grandmother took care of that. What I want now is for my family to understand that their contempt has a price, and that I'm not as helpless as they've convinced themselves I am. She exhaled. The capital withdrawal from Morales' wealth, she said. That was you. I invest in a broad mix of ventures through anonymous vehicles, I replied. When an investment no longer meets my standards ethically or financially, I move capital elsewhere. That's not personal. That's risk management. Without that money, your father's firm is going to collapse. Then maybe he shouldn't have built a business that could be sunk by a single investor, changing their mind, or entrusted core operations to a son who steals from his own grandmother. They're going to come after you, she said quietly. Let them, I said. I have a professional audit of Adrian's thefts. Recorded calls with my grandmother explaining why she transferred everything. 18 months of evidence showing Adrian collecting my rent. If they want a courtroom, they can have one. I doubt they'll like how it ends. The next morning, my phone looked like it had been in a car crash. More than 60 missed calls. Well over 40 texts. A stream of increasingly desperate, angry, and self-pitying messages from Adrian. What did you do? The firm's falling apart. Dad says a silent partner pulled out. Was that you? This is your family. You don't do this to family. Are you really going to ruin Dad to get back at me? Answer me. Stop hiding. Dad isn't there. Are you happy now? That last one made me pause. I bypassed him and called my mother directly. She picked up on the first ring, her voice hoarse. Natalie? Hi, Mom. What happened? Your father had some kind of episode last night, she said. We thought it was a heart attack. The doctors are calling it a severe panic attack. They've kept him at St. David's overnight. His blood pressure is terrible. On top of that, the bank called about Morale's wealth. Some major investor pulled out. Loans are being called. Adrian says the properties are involved somehow, and her words broke apart into sobs. Mom, I said, my tone calm. Take a deep breath. Is Dad stable? For now. Okay. Then listen carefully. Tomorrow, you, Dad, and Adrian are going to sit down with your lawyer. Before that meeting, I'm going to send you a packet of documents. I want you to read every page, slowly. After that, we can talk about what comes next. What documents? She whispered. Proof, I said, of what Adrian has been doing with Grandma's money for years. Of what he's been doing with mine. Line by line, transaction by transaction. That's not possible, she said weakly. Adrian wouldn't read, I said. Then decide if you'd rather cling to the son you thought you had, or deal with the one you actually raised. I hung up an hour later. An encrypted email left my outbox with a PDF attached 251 pages. The first few pages were written in the dry language of auditors. The summary box at the top needed no embellishment. Subject, Adrian Morales. Period reviewed. January 2021 through February 2023. Findings. Approximately $360 to $400 in rental income diverted from properties legally owned by Natalie Morales. False maintenance invoices, inflated contractor payments, undeclared owner distributions, and misdirected rent deposits documented. Potential charges: grand theft, embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, filing of false property documents. The rest of the packet was proof, screenshots, bank transfers, copies of invoices from contractors that didn't exist, side-by-side comparisons of what tenants had actually paid versus what Adrian had claimed. I didn't follow up at 4 p.m. Austin time. My father called from the hospital. You've destroyed me, he said without preamble. His voice sounded thin, older than I'd ever heard it. My company is finished. My son is a criminal on paper. Your grandmother moved everything to you behind my back. You let me sit in that room and make a fool of myself. Abuela protected what she built from someone who was actively stealing it, I said. She didn't choose me over you. She chose reality over denial. Adrian made some mistakes, he said. Mistakes are typos on tax forms, I replied. Adrian took hundreds of thousands of dollars from an elderly woman who trusted him. Then, after those assets legally became mine, he kept right on stealing. Those aren't mistakes. That's a pattern you refuse to see. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I said. There's a difference. She tried to bring it up. Remember? You called her paranoid. You told her to trust family. So she trusted the only person in the family who actually looked at the numbers. He was silent for a long time. What do you want? He asked finally. What will it take for you to stop this? Nothing, I said. I'm not asking you for a thing. I already own the properties. My capital is already out of your firm. There is nothing you have that I need. So you're just going to stand there and watch us collapse? I didn't push you off a cliff, Dad, I said. You built your business on quicksand and handed the shovel to Adrian. I just stopped pumping money into the hole. He swallowed audibly. The $5 million that vanished. That was yours? I'm a private equity investor, I said. I manage a diversified portfolio currently valued at around $150 million. Morale's wealth was one position among many one I've been uneasy about for some time. When the people running an investment show me they're unethical or incompetent, I move on. That's not vengeance. That's discipline. You're worth how much? He asked like the number itself might kill him. Approximately 150. As of last quarter's mark-to-market. Fortune wrote a piece on me last year. You didn't notice because you never looked. My God, he whispered. Why didn't you tell us? If I'd said I'm a successful investor, would you have believed me? I asked. Or would Adrian have made a joke about me playing with pretend startups while you nodded along? He had no answer. Here's what happens now, I said, my tone shifting into the same mode I used with founders who needed to hear hard truths. Adrian has 72 hours to wire back every dollar he stole from me. All $362,400. If he does, I won't take the file I sent Mom and walk it into the district attorney's office. If he doesn't, I will. And I won't be the only complainant. Several of Grandma's tenants signed statements about cash payments that never showed up on her books. He doesn't have that kind of money, Dad said, panicked. He should have thought about that before he spent other people's, I replied. He can liquidate cars, retirement accounts, the watch collection he likes to flash on Instagram. Not my problem. And my company? He asked, voice cracking. You have 30 days to wind it down responsibly, I said. Pay your employees. Transition clients. Be honest about what happened. I won't reinvest. But if you close cleanly and don't leave anyone holding the bag, I won't pursue you for the misrepresentations in your investor updates. You're really going to do this, he said, to your own father. You're the one who sat in a conference room this morning and told your daughter she deserved nothing of what she'd been quietly managing and protecting, I said. I'm just declining to fix the consequences for you. What about the houses? He whispered. The rentals. The cabin. There must be some way to. There isn't, I said. They haven't been part of Grandma's estate for almost 2 years. She moved them. Legally, the deeds have my name on them. Adrian is finished as property manager. I've already contacted a professional firm in Austin. They'll be taking over next week. He was counting on that income, my father said weakly. He was counting on no one ever checking his math, I replied. He started to cry. Real, gasping sobs. Your mother, he said. This will break her. Mom has choices, I said. She can stand with reality. Or she can keep pretending her son is a victim and her daughter is ungrateful. But she doesn't get to ask me to bankroll the fantasy. You've become cold, he said. No. I answered. I've just stopped mistaking self-preservation for cruelty. I ended the call. Outside, the sun slipped behind the skyline. Lights flickered on. One window at a time. My email pinged. From Victor. Meral's Wealth just filed notice they're ceasing operations. Clients being referred out. Looks like they're shutting it down clean. From the new property management company in Austin. Management contract for all 9 properties. Attached for your review. Adrian Meral's turned over keys and files this afternoon. No confrontation. From my attorney. Travis County White Collar Unit received an anonymous packet outlining your brother's activities. If he doesn't repay, charges will likely follow. I closed my laptop without replying to any of them. 3 days later, my bank notified me of an incoming wire. $362,400. Sender, Adrian Meral's .no apology. Just money. I forwarded the receipt to my attorney with a single line. Close the loop. No charges. A week after that, my mother called. We lost the house, she said numbly. We had to sell to cover debts. We're moving into a smaller place across town. Adrian's wife has taken the baby to her parents. Your father sees someone now. A therapist? I'm sorry you're going through that, I said. And I meant it? Painful lessons still hurt. You could have stopped this, she said sharply. You could have picked up the phone, helped, given Adrian time, loaned your father the money back. You chose not to. I chose not to enable it, I said. Every time you bail someone out of the consequences of their own choices, you teach them they can do it again. You're still our daughter, she said. Doesn't that mean anything to you? 3 weeks ago, I said, Dad sat in front of his lawyer and told me my brother deserved everything I owned, while Adrian was actively stealing from me. You nodded along. You all assumed I was barely scraping by because I didn't show you my life. That's not what being a daughter means. That's what being a convenient background character means. She was very quiet. What do you want from us? She asked finally, hurt and angry and lost. I wanted you to know me, I said. You weren't interested. Now you're furious that the story you told yourselves about me was wrong, and that you paid a price for that misjudgment. I can't fix your embarrassment. So that's just it? She asked. You're finished with us. I'm finished being dismissed, I said. If you ever want a relationship with me, it starts with saying the hard parts out loud. Adrian is a thief. Dad chose not to see it. Grandma protected herself. I succeeded without your help. Those are facts. If you can say them, call me. If you can't, don't. You're cruel, she whispered. No, I said. I'm finally being as loyal to myself as I've been to everyone else. She hung up. Nearly a year later, Fortune ran their Where Are They Now? Feature on Past 40 under 40 honorees. This time, when the photographer asked if I was willing to do an in-office shoot, I said yes. The article laid out my trajectory: Midwest colleges, early exit windfall, quiet compounding, the portfolio of dull but wildly profitable companies I backed. There was a paragraph on my philanthropic work too, a scholarship fund I'd set up at Northwestern for first-generation students from low-income families. The reporter asked, near the end, what's your relationship with your family like now? We're distant, I said. Sometimes the people who should be clapping the loudest when you win are the ones most threatened by your success. That's not a you problem. That's a them problem. Any regrets? She asked. I thought about my grandmother's hands, always warm, always steady, about the look on my father's face when he realized the struggling daughter he dismissed had been propping up his legacy. I regret that some people only recognize value when it's tied to a check, I said. I don't regret refusing to let them cash me forever. They pulled a quote for the sidebar. Being underestimated is a strategic advantage. When people think you're failing, they stop pretending. That's when you see who they really are. A week after the article dropped, my father sent a single-line email. I read the piece. I am proud of you. I should have said that decades ago. I archived it without replying. Adrian never reached out. Once a year, a holiday card shows up at my Chicago office in my mother's handwriting. I don't open them. I place them, still sealed, in a box in my closet. Maybe one day I'll be ready. Maybe I won't. The properties my grandmother signed over to me are now worth just over $6.5 million. After expenses, every dollar of rental income flows into the scholarship trust. Last year, 14 students started college using money Adrian once thought he'd stolen for good. Abuela Carmen would have liked that dot as for Morale's wealth partners. Their old office space downtown is now a third-wave coffee shop with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. A fellow investor mentioned it offhand one day. You're from Austin, right? She'd said, any relation to the Morales family that used to have a firm in that building? Distant? I replied. And that was the truth.